Hello there. I am Lillian Lark. I am an author who writes monster romance, and for the vast majority of my covers, I design and paint them myself. Up till now, all of those covers that I painted, I actually painted them digitally. I would use my iPad, use the Procreate app, and then color them in Photoshop. But for this cover, I wanted to try something different. It's been like at least 8 years since I tried to paint something traditionally. I used to paint with oils, and I kind of wanted to get away from the screen and try that again. When I asked my readers if they wanted to see this process, like how I go about doing it, and experience maybe my failures and successes of this, they seemed really interested. So if that is you, welcome. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So what you can see now is the thumbnail process. Generally, you would use 3 colors and do like a very basic image to get an idea of what you would want the full image to look like as a composition. And I have 2 stock photography photos that I have found that I really like the way the model is positioned. And so I'm working around that idea. I knew from the beginning that I did want to include a full, like a dragon in it. I didn't want to do a couples cover because I wanted to paint a dragon, which comes with its like own struggles of how do you actually want your fantasy dragon to look. So I did a few little sketches off to the side, if you saw that earlier, to kind of get like an angled face. Now I have taken the thumbnail that I like the best. I did actually send a couple thumbnails to some trusted people saying, hey, do you also like this one the best? And they agreed, and so we went forward with this one. I brought in the photo that I'm using as a photo reference for the woman to get and trace over any of the like specifics of her position. A lot of other people may choose to draw this themselves rather than trace. I just like painting a lot more than drawing, and I don't want to make any mistakes, so I work from a photo. Now I'm trying not to get too into the weeds here when I get to like render the face up, like trying not to spend too much time, because really what I need is a drawing that looks like close enough that I can then do it physically later. And it kind of defeats the purpose of doing it in the physical form if I like fully render it digitally. But also this is the fun part in a lot of cases, because you get to see like the face emerge. This is a monster romance, but she doesn't get romance by the full-scale reptilian dragon. He spends most of the book in a form that is most like a human with some dragon attributes. You know, some fun things like multiple assets, and yeah, I don't know how much I can actually cover and not get this video to get me in trouble. He has claws and scales and is very emotionally unavailable because of his very tragic past, and now has to deal with a thief that he catches trying to steal from him. And we know kind of what happens between them, because she is very visibly pregnant, and it is the trope of the book is accidental pregnancy. Before starting on this book, I was actually thinking I was going to do a different book or work on one of those, but people started asking about the dragon Kalos, who shows up in a couple of my previous books, asking for that dragon romance to come to fruition, and it stuck with me in so much where I just got the idea for the book, and it was like, oh wow, that is the one I need to do right now. So now you can actually see me transferring the drawing that I did digitally to the illustration board that I've prepared for this. What I did was print out the image with multiple 8.5 by 11s. I tape them together. I put some graphite on the back of it, and I then traced over the lines to transfer it. And now I'm trying to like fill in all the details and really refine the drawing. Trying not to get, like, again, too much into the weeds where I'm putting in too much detail. But at the same time, I know that if I paint thin enough, the drawing will show through. So I'm also trying to make it super nice. It's a tightrope because a lot of this will get covered, and it is sad. But it's also like letting me know where things are supposed to go. I do eventually come to the conclusion that, again, I don't like drawing nearly as much as I like painting. So I'm going to get it enough detail that it helps me and just fill in the rest later with the underpainting. But yeah, I feel like a lot of my best books come to me when I think that I'm going to be working on different projects. And then suddenly, in like a swoop of inspiration, I realize that no, that other project is actually the one. Now I've applied a spray fixative to this, and now am painting in an underpainting using acrylic paint. This is actually one of 3 colors that I have. It's, I guess, in my storage, I did not think that acrylic paint was very useful. And to be honest, like, this is useful in so much that it's reminding me how to use a paintbrush again, like what kind of paintbrushes I have, like which ones are my favorite. Mostly, I kind of just forgot how much of a physical process this was. And that was a super nice thing to remember in some ways, because yeah, I was like really tired after working on this for like maybe an embarrassingly short amount of time, but it was also like it felt so real compared to when I'm working on my iPad and I can just sink all this time into over rendering things. Even like the image does turn out really beautiful and I'm really happy with it in the end. Most of the details you don't see in that image until you zoom up really close. So yeah, this was just a really nice change. I'm really happy with how that dragon is turning out. He looks mean. He's got like, oh, he's got spikes. He's got horns. And like I'm putting in like the little scales because that part I know I'm going to keep the paint a lot thinner so that I can see those scales through. But yeah, this was definitely the book that I was supposed to be working on. I distinctly remember when the idea came to me, I was like, this is perfect. I have to write this now. And it's going to be so light and fluffy and cute that I'm just going to be able to bang that out. I'm going to be able to do this so fast. Like, it's probably not even going to be very long. Yeah, I think it's probably just going to be Like even as long as Stalked by the Kraken, which is 50 to 60K. Yeah, I think we can just do this and put it out there, and it's going to be wonderful and fun. And I should know by now, like there should be a red flag in my brain saying, "Hey, whenever you think it's going to go really fast, it's probably not." Because soon you're going to start gaining tragic backstories, and that makes everything more complicated. And yeah, it ended up being a 100K book, and it took so long to write. And I enjoyed it so much, but yeah, be careful. But also, like, really, I am full of full of advice that the thing that you are most excited about is going to be the thing that you like the thing that will look and feel the best while you are doing it and by the end. So now you can see that I have started with the oil paint. This does not show how much time it took me to mix the colors on the palette beforehand. I made a newbie mistake. And yeah, that's a newbie mistake. I did a color comp, or like where I chose the color scheme that I wanted it to look like, and I was basing all of my color choices off that color scheme. I did that color scheme digitally, and I did not consider at all how long, or really just how impossible some of the colors that I chose were going to be to mix up with the paints that I currently had. So I'm also discovering at this very moment how much more difficult it is to do like a soft gradient in paint rather than digitally, because you kind of forget when you work so long digitally that things like, oh, just this soft gradient from this color to this color actually require so much more work. Right now I'm trying to wipe out like the details of the dragon that I went over, because it is, if I can't see it later, it's going to be very difficult to paint the spines back in. And now you see this moment of realizing, hey, I messed up. Those colors are just not the right colors. They were so much more saturated than what I was looking for, that I decided it was just much better to scrap a day of work and wipe them out and start over again. Mixing in like a lot more white, because I really forgot that paint, like a lot of the pigments that I like to use, are very transparent. And when it's transparent and you're not mixing them with white, they turn very dark and saturated. And it's great if you want dark and saturated. But I wanted a really light and lovely gradient behind her. A lot of people, when I said I was going to do this in oils, they lamented how long oils take to dry. And yes, oils do take quite a bit to dry. I used to, like, the medium I used to use was a mixture of turpentine, or turpenoid. Turpentine is the smelly version. Turpenoid, linseed oil, and a couple of drops of some sort of drier medium. And that would work really well with trying to get the paint to dry like within a couple days rather than like a week. But yeah, like colors like white are like, they take a lot longer to dry anyway. So what for this one though, I wanted to try a different medium, and I tried the walnut alkyd medium from M. Graham, because they're as non-toxic as they can make them, and a lot of people really like them. And what I'm doing in this like base layer of it is like just mixing up the color I want and putting a few drops of it in. Later, I realize a better way for me to use it anyway, but for this like base color, that was probably the best thing I could do. And you see how I'm keeping like the paint pretty thin in like for the smoke so that I can keep that detail. I also really like rubbing out paint to get stuff back because you get like that pretty gradation without actually having to mix paint. It's nice. This is also a Prussian blue that I'm choosing to do the. It's a mixture of Prussian blue and alizarin crimson that I chose to do the dragon in. They're both pretty transparent paints, so it makes it way easier to see through them. And at this point, I'm very aware that I should not have done that very pretty gradient in the background first. Not without maybe more than a weekend that I wanted to leave it because it has so much white paint mixed in to all of those pretty colors that it is taking forever to dry. So I keep putting my hand in it because I don't have a stick that some people uh, use to leverage to be able to paint on details without putting their hand in their paint. It did eventually dry pretty well, though, so it was just a little bit of a painful learning experience. Really enjoy putting like those darks into like the smoke. Still realizing that the smoke is not going to be as like fuzzy or gradient friendly as if I had done it digitally. And like it was a little painful to like come to that conclusion, but like you have to accept that you're painting something physically and there are physical limitations. It's funny because I'm getting a little bit mesmerized doing this voiceover. But yeah, now I'm starting to put more of those pinks in because in the color comp, it's like it's a really difficult to get, like impossible for me to mix blue with some pinks. And I just don't have the colors that are going to make it that blue and pink that I planned it to be. And so at this moment, and in the end, I do put some of those colors in using Photoshop later. It's actually really funny because the leading lady in this is a thief who, well, she's like a recovering thief. She does not want to be a thief. She does one last like favor for the guy who like she sees as like her mentor. And that's what gets her into the dragon's clutches. And but like what she does is art restoration, which is neither here nor there. But like her what she loves to do, her hidden skill, is art itself. And she has so many like hangups about it. But I think one of the most unrealistic things I put into the book was like how fast she paints. And to be fair, like I'm painting very thin coats. Like I'm like very detail oriented painter myself, and while she's more what's called a like alla prima, where she's like doing wet paint into wet and like mixing the colors true and like painting that way. That is not how I paint, except if I was in a class doing like a still life. Those are, or figure painting. Oh, I love figure painting. That was such a great class. But yeah, I have her like producing paintings left and right, and that's the only thing that really like made me laugh. Of like, oh, this seems a little unrealistic. I mean, maybe some people paint that quickly. I I just paint things a lot slower, just like I write books slowly. Just love doing that dress. All of those wrinkles in the dress are just so fun. I'm also like really careful about the dress because I know it's going to take forever to dry. Okay, now this, we have entered the moment of really, really trusting the process. Like, this is the ugly phase. This is every creative project, I think, goes through an ugly phase, and that is what this is. It's going to look so much worse before it looks good in the end. So what I'm doing is like I put in a very thin paint and I scrubbed it into like the zones of like, oh, I want this to be a warmer zone, I want this to be a cooler zone, and then I'm painting into that wet paint with white, and it's picking up that color as sort of like a shortcut to not like mixing a bunch of colors right at this moment. It gives me some of that zone quality that I was looking for to say, like, oh, I want the cheeks to be warm. And it's finally now looking a lot better. I hate the ugly phase. It is the hardest thing to work through as like a painter or a writer. Like sometimes you just lose all trust, and the only way through it is to just keep going. The skin is still like more saturated than what I'm going to want it to be in the end, but now I can actually see the more definition. Like I'm painting in like how the light hits the surface and really rendering it out, and it's a really fun process. So it's like it's from the ugly phase to when things start really getting fun. And I, like I said, I always think that there is some sort of ugly phase when you're doing a creative project. Oh, and hands are their own thing. Hands are always like I love rendering hands, but they're always a challenge. I do have to admit, around the time that I started, like the day that I started the smoke and like adding the lights into the smoke itself, was the day that I sat back and really regretted my life choices. Like, I looked at it and I looked at how much more work was going to be required before the painting would be considered finished. And I'm like, why did I do this to myself? But now that I'm sitting here and like watching myself do it, it's really cathartic to be able to see it like really come together. Like, will I do this in like another cover in oils again? Uh, like we'll see. Uh, it did take quite a while, but the painting, oh, just the process was super enjoyable. She's getting a little like hair metally here because I put in like big swaths of hair trying to get like the shape of the hair that it was supposed to be, and I added too much. So eventually I'll go back in and like take that out. But now I get to work on the dragon teeth and just trying to get the eye color and the teeth color like really glow. Oh, he just looks so mean. We do love a mean dragon love interest. Or I'll make you love him in anyway. Yeah, now I'm shaping the hair up. So during this whole process, I'm trying so hard to keep everything clean and neat, keep the cat hair from getting stuck to the painting. But like as an art student, I was not super great at like keeping my brushes to the point of like not smearing other colors in. And so as like this second time round doing oil painting, I'm like, I will be so clean and neat. I've never painted like around the cats I currently have. So I always worried that they were going to walk across the palette. And so I was always putting it away. And I thought that I was in the clear. But the last day I was painting, the cat was sitting on the desk and her tail just went all into the alizarin crimson, which is basically a color that kind of looks like blood until it's smeared and then it's really pink. But I had to chase that cat down and like wash her tail, and she was so upset. And I was like, we were so close to having 0 incidents. But yeah, that was the funny paint story that I had for this process. I had gone through now and glazed in white over the skin to really desaturate the skin tones to bring it into a range that I'm more looking for, and I'm adding in more highlights in the face, and it's really like bringing out the liveliness of the painting now and just really just loving the way it is looking. Doing all those little details, like all the features, adding all the flyaway hairs. Oh, the hands turned out so nice. And since like I glazed over the skin, like I had waited for it to dry before glazing back in, I was able to add more details, and it's a little hard to see now because it's a little dark. Really getting into the smoke again here now that the layer is completely dried. I'm putting in like a lot more lights and pinks to really change the values and bring it into looking all cohesive instead of having like streaks of blue and streaks of pink. Like, I'm surprised like how much I enjoy the way the smoke looks, because it looks so completely different than how I wanted it. Like the way that it looks streamy instead of fuzzy, I just really, really like it. And I guess that goes to show that you could have all of these plans and think that that's the way that you really want something to be, and have it turn out better than what you expected while looking completely different. But yeah, I'm adding all those lights in, really enjoying that, because every time you add a little light into it, it just gives it so much more definition. We're really entering the last stages of it now, and I really enjoyed this process of relearning this skill. I am so happy that people were interested in joining this journey with me, and I'm just really happy with how it turned out. Yeah, it's takes my breath away. Thank you to everyone who has stuck with me through this, and happy reading.